Howdy everybody, I just finished building this table here. This is an idea I've had for quite a while. You know, in most of my vans I build, I like to have these little Lagoon pivot tables. They're like a super common thing you find in vans nowadays, and I think the bracket is just a great design. However, you know, 99% of the time this table will live right here, but there's times when we're camping when we want to like eat some breakfast outside on the table, or I might bring my barbecue to make some burgers or like some pancakes on the griddle in the morning. And at those times, it'd be nice to have a little table outside to set that thing on. So I've had that idea kicking around in my head for a little while now to make like a tabletop for this Lagoon bracket that can then transform to a table outside. That's what this thing does. You can pull this off the bracket. Then you've just a simple little knob you loosen here. You can undo the bracket, and then these legs fold out. Then you can use this as a little table. You know, I really like this design. When it's sitting up here, it basically looks seamless. You can't really tell that it's got legs that fold out of it. And then it works like a pretty good little table here. So today's video is going to go over how I built this, some of the materials and components I used in case you'd like to build the same thing for yourself. All right, so one of the first things I got to mention though is that table I made. It measures 25.5 inches across the top here. And this way it's 17.5. Now I sized this so that it can perfectly fit that barbecue that I like to use. So you may want to adjust that for whatever you plan to put on it. And generally, you know, depending on your living space, sometimes a table of that size is just like too big to maneuver around. So take that into consideration. Don't just blindly make it the same size. I will say though that if you go any less than that 17.5 inches across, it would be pretty difficult to mount that Lagoon bracket in the middle of the tabletop. So just keep that in mind. It would be pretty difficult to go any narrower than that. Now for a little while now, I've been wanting to get my hand on some of Moxitec's aluminum framing system. This is a product I've just been really interested and curious to work with, and I've got a few larger projects that I'd like to use it for. So this kind of mini small project seems like a good way to actually get my hands on some and then see what I thought of it before buying a larger amount. Now I am pretty happy with it, and I think I'm gonna try to make a video sometime soon about why I like this product, why I would choose it over 80/20. So if that video has come out, then somewhere in the corner here, a little like sticker tag link thingy should come up, you know, to take you to that video. But just in a nutshell, it's both lighter and cheaper than 80/20. And I just really wanted to actually see how it worked with kind of the style of framing system that it is. But all of that is for a future video. Today we're just gonna focus on building this table. So this entire table is made of Moxitec parts. Then I've got a 6mm sheet of plywood for kind of the center panel here. It has a phenolic hexaply skin, which you can buy from some sources on the internet. That hexaply has both like a texture side and a smooth side. And in the end, I went with smooth side up just so it's easier to wipe down and everything. Other things that you're gonna need is obviously the Lagoon table bracket, and then a few just small items like I used some stainless steel cable, some riv nuts, some screws, and just small parts like that. So the first thing I did was make the frame. You know, as I mentioned, I sized this to fit my barbecue and then cut my aluminum just on the miter saw. This is Moxitec's L-shaped extrusion. It's 1.5 inches tall, and it actually relies on these press fit corner connectors. I did purchase the tight fit extrusions, which are supposed to be for more permanent applications, and I was pretty happy to find that that is actually a pretty damn tight fit. In fact, I got a little mallet happy when I was installing one of these and actually installed it the wrong way. And it took quite a bit of hammering to like get it separated again. So that is what I wanted to see in this product. And it seems like a really good, tight fit, well-engineered product. After that, it was time for the leg portion. And the other reason Moxitec seemed like a good application for this project is that it also sells these simple rectangular extrusions that are 3/4 of an inch by 1.5 inch. And for those legs or for those rectangular extrusions, they actually sell these hinged brackets. And that makes this step a lot easier. The hinges basically attach with 2 screws, and then you can hammer the legs onto them. And I do want to mention that this is all looking quick and easy, but it actually took me quite a bit of refinement to make sure these legs were the right length. I wanted to make sure they have a snug fit so that when I did fold them up, there was less chance that they would rattle as we're driving around down the road. So there was actually a few rounds of shaving off just a little bit at a time, a little hair at a time on the miter saw to make sure that the fit was nice and tight. And then they have these end plugs for those rectangular extrusions as well. And you know, if you're setting it down in gravel and such, it should keep the metal from getting scratched up. Once the legs are on, you maybe could just leave them as these like single legs, but they have quite a bit of flex to them. I mean, it's a pretty long lever arm. To add some rigidity to the legs, I did kind of plan to add some braces to it. Now this was going to be something a little tricky when I was drawing this out on a piece of paper, because in order to have both sides you know, basically fold flush and both sides be braced to one another, they basically would either have to fold across each other or one side wouldn't fold flush. So you can't just use the simple like T-brackets that Moxitec provides. This part did take a little bit of creativity. So for 2 of the legs, I just used those T-brackets. And for the other 2, I needed to notch the aluminum tubing to make this work out. You know, I used a combination of my miter saw set to a certain depth, and then I just angle grinded the rest of it off. I did leave about 1/3 of the extrusion height because this way, like, this shallow U shape still provides a little bit of stiffness, but really it's just there to keep those legs from not moving independently and flexing around too much. And then I used a couple riv nuts, and then I could screw this kind of notched brace piece on. This way things folded up as flush as possible along the bottom. At this point, I attached a plywood top, and I do want to mention here that when you look at that L-shaped extrusion, the inner corner here does have a small radius, so it is helpful to kind of take the edge off your plywood sheet so that it does fit into the corner nicely. I decided to go with that smooth side facing up, you know, that way I can write on it like through a piece of paper. I won't have to deal with that textured surface, and it's probably going to be easier to clean. But yeah, I think I'll get some kind of mat or some kind of cover because there's just so many screws on here that it probably doesn't matter whether I went textured side up or now. I pre-drilled all my holes for my screws with a nice countersink. That way the screws would be nice and flush. Then I drilled more countersunk holes to attach that Lagoon bracket. Here I'm using screws with some nuts on the bottom. I thought I had some lock nuts in the shop here, but I couldn't find any. So in this video, I'm just using regular nuts, but it probably would be a good idea to use some kind of lock nuts, like nylon lock nuts, just because this thing is going to be rattling every day in the van or, you know, getting bounced around. And now just a couple finishing touches. First off, I wanted some kind of latch or catch so that the legs definitely couldn't come down while I was driving around. And the second is that although the hinges for these legs do have like a limit point where they can't swing any further, it seemed like a good idea to have some kind of actual like limit strap between the two to make sure that they don't fold too far apart. I mean, that's just what happens with tables. They're gonna have stuff stacked on them. And I feel like this was a good safety measure. So after playing around for a bit to figure out maybe like the simplest way to do this, I ended up putting an extra riv nut in each of the cross members between the legs. And then into those riv nuts, I screwed these little stainless steel eye bolts that I like to use for projects. And I'm actually using the eye bolt on the second leg that folds up as my catch/latch. The second leg essentially holds the first leg set in place. I'm just using a little piece of plywood with a threaded insert and then like a threaded knob that I had lying around. I took a small piece of plastic and kind of cut a small groove in it so it registers into that eye bolt. And then with just one knob, I can hold everything together. And then after that whole knob thing was figured out, then I did eventually go in and make that stainless steel cable. I basically took as far as the legs go apart and made my stainless steel cable to that length. And that's that. I hope you found something useful in this video. You know, I really like these kind of multifunctional items that you can put in a van. Kind of helps reduce the clutter. And that's just always great when you're in a van to have less things to worry about, less things kind of kicking about. So thanks so much for watching as always.